Well, pretty fun day at the Shoe in Columbus because we had the spring game finally back inside the Shoe for Ohio State football. A day that was, in a lot of ways, a celebration and in some ways answering some questions of what this team might look like here as we get ready for football here in 2024. We'll give you our latest reaction on our spring game edition of Instant Analysis coming up next on Buckeye Breakdown.
We've got the whole crew together as we cover Ohio State with our instant analysis from Ohio State.
There's something that doesn't feel right.
Unbelievable effort from him today. Is E.J. Liddell going to crack the first team All Big Ten?
I think he can be the guy. I'm not trying to start a quarterback controversy.
He seems to have the durability. He certainly has the toughness. This is the question on a lot of people's minds here. Welcome to Buckeye Breakdown.
Well, hey, everybody, and welcome high atop the Horseshoe here in Columbus. We are glad to have you as part of our coverage on Buckeye Breakdown. Of course, BuckeyesNow, part of the Sports Illustrated Network, and looking forward to what we certainly hope is going to be a fun fall, and it begins in the spring for sure, and officially caps off here in the springtime with the annual spring game. Brendan Gulick, Anthony Moeglin with you, and actually at the outset, this is going to sound ridiculous, I have no idea what the score was.
Yeah,
doesn't really matter, but there was a scoring system, and I'm sure that if I wanted to look it up, I could, but nobody really cares what the score is in the spring game. It was the offense versus the defense. It was about what quarterbacks played well, what young guys made impressions. Did the offensive line look better? How about the defense that brought basically everybody back? The scoreboard was some sort of like necessary component to all this.
Yeah, what a fun day. It's a celebration of football. An April football Saturday. It's hard to beat. We got blessed with some awesome weather, coming off a week of some tough stuff. So it was awesome to have the team out there. And one thing that, I took away just at the very top level from our pregame walks and being down on the sidelines before the game is this team's got a lot of elite talent on it. And it's got a lot of talent, a lot of great guys, a lot of great young players to go along with some of the older guys that are coming back. So, from all the hype that's surrounding this team, it's evident when you look around and see what's on that team, on that field.
I mean, the question that everybody in Ohio State fandom wants to know is who's going to lead us this fall? Who's going to be the quarterback? Because there's so many reasons to believe that this team could win a national championship. And I don't know if it's spoiler alert or not. I don't think we really learned the answer to that question today. What I would say coming out of this game, my opinion, is that Will Howard indeed leads that race. I say that because not only was he the first quarterback on the field, he didn't play a ton, which to me was more about let's see what some of these young guys can do. We need to develop, not let's go showcase what Will can do.
Certainly. And it felt like a battle of the backups almost. You got Will his necessary work. Hey, put a cap on the spring season, feel good going into the summertime, and let's find out who's going to be behind him. Because, you never know. And we've seen this in the past that when you have an elite team like this, the one position you don't want to hinder it is the quarterback position. If your starter goes down, are you prepared to have a second or third guy ready to go? So it felt like Devin Brown and Lincoln Keenholz were almost kind of in a battle for two, and then that third spot between Aaron Noland and Julian Sayin from the young man from Alabama were kind of battling for that number 3 spot. So there's some really intriguing competition from that perspective at the quarterback position. But I share the same opinion as you do, that it felt to me, hey, let's get Will Howard your work in, get out, because you're going to be leading this team come the fall.
So we only talked to a couple of players. I'll call it post-game, really post-practice. It was more about Ryan Day, Chip Kelly, Jim Knowles all standing up in front of the media. And to the quarterback point in this, both Ryan and Chip were essentially asked about this. Obviously, there's a lot going on right now. The transfer portal is going to open back up here, post-spring ball. How quickly do you need to give these guys some kind of a feel of who is where? And the coaches said, look, we're not going to do anything today. We need to go watch the film. But the reality is you got to give them the feedback to let them know sort of where they stand. I don't know that that'll come out publicly, but I get the impression that Will Howard's leading this race.
Yeah, and that question was asked a lot. If you go check out the post-game press conference, that, hey, are you going to tell these guys, where they kind of stand? And yes, the coaches are going to let them know, hey, after spring ball, here's where you stand. And I agree, it's not going to come out publicly. Ryan Day's been around the block long enough. Now he has Chip Kelly on his side too, who's coaching the NFL, been a head coach at all sorts of different places. They're not going to tell us, what the situation is, but those guys know going into summertime what the deal is, where they stand, and more importantly, what they have to do to get better, and if there is a chance to improve and jump a spot, they know that as well. So so this is a really fun time of anticipation, as you prepare for the rest of this offseason.
I'll tell you the other thing that probably is sticking in the mind of a lot of fans after the last time they saw this team on the field, right? It was a Cotton Bowl, and it was an unmitigated disaster for a lot of reasons. But the offensive line is a huge talking point this offseason because you look at all the skill position players on both sides of the ball, and you feel great. But if you can't have the right guys up front to give whoever the quarterback is the time they need, and to give this talented running back room opportunities to go get, downhill quickly, how far in the season can you realistically go? It's a big thing they got to address.
Yeah, and there was a comment made somewhere along the line of like it's really tough to use today as kind of a reference point for us fans because our defensive line is unbelievable. The Ohio State defensive line is incredible, and it's not just the first four; it's the second four. It's like the third four too. That are all these guys could be starters on any other team. Across the country, but they're all here at Ohio State. So it's really hard to have that evaluation. And yes, there are a couple times, like I can think of one where Jack Sawyer just bull rushed his guy right into the quarterback. There's a couple sacks here and there, but that's going to be a question mark kind of throughout the year. And it showed forth at the end of last year when we did play a number of those top teams. You think Michigan, you think Missouri as well. Like some of the teams that were kind of on the upper echelon, it came up, and that's going to be an emphasis going forward. It's going to be a question mark going into the offseason. Did it get answered today? Probably not, but it's still a tough eval going against this team.
Well, and the reality is, Chip Kelly said, look, with the way the college football playoff is changing, all three coaches used the word depth, what felt like 100 times. But Chip in particular said, you know what? It's not just about finding your 5 offensive linemen. Because we honestly need to feel like we have 10 starters. That stuck with me because I don't know if they know who the 5 starters are right now, but the idea of, you are actively trying to develop your younger part of your roster because you're going to need those guys, because you're trying to play what ultimately might be a 16 or 17 game season. This is a whole different animal than what it was even just a year ago.
Yeah, to your point, Coach Kelly had a great point of, hey, there's going to be times when there's the second center plays significant football, or the second guard, or the third tackle. Like, you and I are NFL fans. We're all NFL fans out there. What year has your team gone through an entire 16-game season, now 17, without an injury up front? And it's just so important. And he had a great line. He said it used to be find a pair and a spare, but now it's build a ton of depth. They don't really know they haven't come up with the tagline yet because this is the first time for everybody. And having this longer extended schedule, kind of staring them down the pipe. Depth is certainly on the minds of this entire coaching staff. Ryan Day referenced it. Jim Knowles referenced it. Chip Kelly referenced it. It's important because injuries are going to happen. And again, this team is ready to go, and injuries cannot derail this season.
All right, so. The other thing that is really cool about an environment like today, you can make it pretty game-like. It's hard to match an exact replica of a fall Saturday. But there were 80,000 people here today. And Chip Kelly said, you're looking around and there are some young guys on the roster that are kind of like a little wide-eyed, like, whoa. And he goes, and their offensive coordinator felt the same way because I have never stepped in the shoe, these are Chip Kelly's words, until literally yesterday on Friday this week, when they had their 14th practice of the spring. Today, you can see it's bright blue skies. It's beautiful. Yesterday was gross. So this is kind of like, hey, this is what the shoe is like, right? This is great. There's this element of, okay, this is a cool atmosphere. And I assume that probably a good chunk of our audience was not among the 80,000 that were here. While obviously we were sitting in the press box, I did have the national broadcast open just to see if they said, anything that was particularly striking. And I actually was really impressed with that whole production from Fox because to me, it felt like a 2-hour and 15-minute full-blown Ohio State feature infomercial. Mm-hmm. And the ability to hear in real time from Ryan Day on what he was talking about, some of the feedback he was giving Lincoln Keyholtz got caught in mics. Having Joel on the field, I think, was awesome. It was a really unique way to get a feel for what this Ohio State team looks like right now.
Yeah, and another cool point to the whole Fox production is I don't think it made the TV copy, but Joe Klatt cut a promo like before the game, like doing the OHIL. This is the first time we've done live TV. It was pretty cool. But to your point though, like one of the big storylines this offseason when Chip Kelly got hired was Ryan Day taking a step back from the offensive calling the offensive side of the ball and being that CEO. And it was evident today. Me and you kept talking about it, and one of the things was for me, I was like, they should just give him a mic because Klatt was following him around, and they would like cut to him and like cut out and like just give the guy a mic and just go to him straight. But it was very cool to see Ryan Day, and I would love to know what he was thinking. Like this is the first time in a long time he hasn't been calling the actual offense. So he was in that higher level CEO type role, just visualizing everything that was going on, yelling at the quarterbacks. He got caught yelling at Lincoln a couple times, but like just being in there, seeing what the entire team's doing and not just being in the weeds of, hey, what's the offense doing? What's the next play call? How's this team operating? It was cool to kind of watch.
And yet he still felt, to me, with the exception of literally calling the plays where you have undivided attention on your play sheet, he felt really involved in the offense. And Coach Kelly alluded to that post game, like, look, Ryan's not withdrawn, like, hey, you guys do what you're going to do and I'm going to pop around. He's like, no, he is intimately involved in what we're doing. But Chip is the quarterback's coach and he is the offensive coordinator, and they're game planning now as a group.
Yeah, it was funny too when Chip was talking about.
I want to say that differently because it's not like they weren't game planning as a group earlier. Yeah. It's just Ryan isn't calling the plays, and there's a different philosophy around it.
Yeah, and it's funny, and they were talking about some of the young guys, especially the young quarterbacks, kind of being wide-eyed and seeing 80,000 people. But the one person they felt was Ryan Day, who was standing 5 yards behind him. No. And that's like that's the two eyes, the two daggers that you feel. There's a lot of fans, a lot of stuff going on, bands playing, but there's one person that's behind you that deals with your future, that has a lot to do with what's going on. It was so cool. And the circumstance of Chip Kelly, right? He's been at Ohio State now for 2 months, and he got there a week before spring ball started. So, like, for reference, coaches have spring ball planned out, prepared for weeks and potentially months in advance. Bill O'Brien left with 2 weeks before spring ball to get Chip Kelly in to not only interview and hire him, fly him across the country, find a place for him to live. Oh, and then, by the way, we have to install an offense now. So I'm sure there was a lot of collaboration of like, hey, Chip, I'll take some of the teaching early on while you get to learn the names of your quarterback. He was talking about how he came in with a clean slate for all these guys because he's like, I don't even know their names. So it's like, it doesn't matter if you're a 1-star, 2-star, 0-star, 5-star. I'm learning you got a clean slate in my book. So it was just kind of a cool way to visualize what's been going on inside of the Ohio State football. And they showed a pretty great product today.
All right, we've gone 13 minutes talking some of the more important topics for sure. But there are two topics here we've not gotten to that we cannot wait any longer. And the first one is defense. Look, it's a glorified scrimmage, right? You're not tackling guys to the ground the way you would in fall. And in some cases, it's a thud session where you hit a guy, you wrap him up, and please God, don't tackle anybody. You don't want to get somebody hurt today. But I was so impressed with the secondary in this game because every quarterback was struggling to find open guys. The pocket was collapsing, and you're looking around. You're like, yeah, nobody's open. Actually, it's not an inability to read the field. There's nobody open.
Joe Klatt said that they cut down to him on the side or on the field, and he's like, yeah, guys, quarterbacks are struggling a little bit, but there's nobody open. And like it's a joke what's on that defense. I mean, it is unbelievable. You got Davison Igbinosun on one side and Denzel Burke on the other side, just in the secondary. And Coach and Jim Knowles talked about it in the post-game press conference. He's like, hey, when you can lock down one side of the field, you feel really good about the rest of the defense. When you can legitimately lock down both sides of the field, like, good luck, because that just takes that worry out. And that think about it, it shrinks the field by like 10 yards on each side. So instead of playing 53 yards wide, playing like 30 yards wide. And best of luck because, you can't throw it. Good luck blocking anything inside because there's some absolute animals on this defense. And now let's add in Caleb Downs in the back end, who's one of the best players.
Well, and so the reality is, while the defense played really well today, they weren't even at full strength, right? Yeah. Sonny Styles not on the field, Lathan Ransom not on the field. So, I don't want to call the defense a work in progress. The whole team's a work in progress. Mm-hmm. You've got a lot more settled roles because you've got so many key pieces returning defensively. And now it's the third year of the same system, the same language, the same coaching staff. The addition, I think, of James Laurinaitis is going to be awesome. I'm so excited to see what this linebacker room looks like. In fact, again, for whatever it's worth, CJ Hicks led the team in tackles today with 8, which was great to see. But if you were here today, you probably walk away going, yeah, the offense played fine. But, man, that defense looked good.
Not only look good, good luck to anybody who comes into the shoe or faces us on the road, because it's going to be a challenge no matter who's on the other side of the football. This defense has all the pieces, and all the pieces are pretty darn elite, too.
Okay, the best player on the field, I don't think played defense, despite how well the defense played. We didn't see him a ton today, but anybody that's followed any Ohio State content throughout the course of the offseason certainly is learning the name Jeremiah Smith. #1 overall national recruit. Maybe you've been catching up on some Ohio State stuff in the offseason, and maybe you didn't see it back in December. Ryan Day was at signing day, at the podium, talking to the media, waiting to see what was going to happen. And you might have seen by now the clip of, Ryan kind of like somewhat leaning into the moment, having some fun with it, but like crumbling into the podium, like he was going to faint because of the exhale. Okay, Jeremiah Smith is going to be a Buckeye. And it's such a big deal because this kid is on a different level. And I think we live in a society where the hyperbole is it's just part of our vernacular, right? It's part of the hype machine that is college football. You want to talk about the next guy who's going to be the #1 pick. You love feeling that way coming in. This kid is off the charts special.
And he looks the part. You stand next to him.
He doesn't look like a freshman.
He doesn't look like a receiver. He looks like he can play tight end. Like, are you kidding me? And then he starts running, and you're like, dude, there's what? Kind of for a little context, it's a little windy outside and like gusting. So like there wasn't many deep shots today. There were 3 or 4 times where number 4 just beat everybody on the field. He was 5 yards past anybody. And you can imagine, what that's going to be like as he, he's supposed to still be in high school right now. So he's supposed to be still going through the lunch line.
I would say, was it Jim Knowles that said it was like the hot lunch line?
Yeah, it's like calling it. Yeah, like this kid's supposed to be going through the hot lunch line, getting ready for prom. Instead, he's been at spring practice and just dusting, guys who've been playing, Big Ten and national football for the last 3 years. He's going to be an issue for teams to cover. He's huge. He's fast. He's strong. He had a couple catches today during the actual scrimmage, but even in warm-ups and things, got a natural way to catch the football. He really just snags it out of the air. He's going to be special to watch. So if you don't know the name yet, look it up because this kid's going to be a name you'll remember all fall long.
Yeah, Jeremiah Smith will certainly be fun. I don't know that I noticed it today, and I'll certainly go back and watch and try to pick up on more. But at least in real time, I don't think I noticed it. But the coaching staff acknowledged post-game with us that they felt like in the last 2 weeks that Jaden Ballard has taken a nice step forward. Obviously, Jaden's been a part of this program for a while, and maybe he's been kind of in the shadows of some of the other guys that have gotten a ton of notoriety, been a little bit more of a special teams, returner at this point in his career than he has seen big-time meaningful snaps. Brandon Innes, he's not injured long-term, but he had a procedure, and so he was not on the field today. You saw some different guys at receiver, and maybe Jeremiah Smith wasn't running with the ones quite yet. Maybe some of that he's like still earning it from everybody, even if they can see the potential. Emeka Egbuka made an unbelievable one-handed catch early in the game. Bryson Rogers had a little bit of a tough day, but I thought largely like he can be part of this mix too.
Yeah, and it goes back to the conversation we were having at the beginning. Depth at the receiver position is so massive. You're not taking 4 guys through 17 games.
No.
You're going to need 5, 6, 7, 8. And you talk about Jaden Ballard. He got a pretty good vote of confidence from Ryan Day in that post game. He said in the last couple of weeks they challenged him. He's been in the program for a long time. He's come from Massillon, Ohio. He knows what big time football is. And they challenged him. And Coach Day said that they've seen enough in the last couple of weeks to know that, hey, he can be a factor in big moments, in big games. And that's huge to hear from your head coach to the media. That wasn't in a team meeting or behind closed doors. That's out there. So that's a big deal. And that's a guy who's seen a lot of great guys come in front of him, right? He's been in the program a long time. And then, supplementing that with some of those other guys you mentioned, like this is a huge area of the team. Obviously for Ohio State, yes, they're going to run the football, but the way they're going to win games late in the year, in November, in December, in January, potentially with the college football playoff, like they're going to need to be able to take the top off, and they got the guys, I think, to do it.
You're obviously going to be looking at a tight end room this year that doesn't have Cade Stover. That's going to feel a lot different. Certainly some returning guys. G. Scott got some good run today. Kazmarek, as a transfer, certainly was on the field quite a bit. Jelani Thurman looks like he was created in a lab when you're watching him warm up before the game. I'm sure Jelani Thurman will get some run this year. Maybe that's one of the positions on this team that we're still trying to figure out a little bit. And maybe a guy that even factors in. I don't know that he's going to play meaningful snaps right away when he gets here this summer. Demarion Witten, a kid that was a state champion from Glenville High School up in Cleveland. He doesn't have a traditional tight end body, but he looks like a really good receiver that can play tight end. And based on what Ryan Day said post-game, they're kind of planning like, I might use him actually both ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when you can have those guys that really challenge what the defense can do, because if you can stick them on the end of the line of scrimmage, and that's going to happen, right? There's a couple instances today where Ohio State came out in the I formation, or they had a couple attached tight ends. They showed the T formation at the start that
was cool.
As an ode to Woody Hayes, right? But the tight end position is a quarterback's best friend. It is an offensive weapon when you can use it and you can have guys to do it. We saw it with Cade Stover the last couple of years. Like when you have a guy who can go at the tight end position, it really changes what you can do on offense. And Ohio State, I think, is going to have a handful of them, come the fall.
I thought maybe one other guy defensively I wanted to point out, another true freshman, because you're looking at some young players in this game. Edric Houston was a huge get for Ohio State this offseason. I thought he had a really nice afternoon, made a big sack.
Yeah, I mean, just add it to the depth of that defensive line. Just keep them coming, because that's going to be a position that wreaks havoc in games and totally changes complexion of a lot of games. So, great addition there. And there's a couple others out there that are just like, hey, where do they get these guys? How do they get all these guys? And yeah, we love having them on our side. Final thoughts. You said it in the pregame. We were just talking. Imagine a playoff game at the Shoe. I mean, holy cow! There's 80,000 people here today on April the 12th. Or April the 13th.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. They were doing Script Ohio. The place was going nuts. Imagine a playoff game here. That would be all-time. I mean, that'd be an all-time football moment.
It would be, and yet I almost don't want that to happen because that means Ohio State isn't in the top four, right? The way this whole thing's shaking out. But you never really know. I think it would be incredibly cool if you could have that kind of an environment here for sure. Either way, I walk away from today feeling like, look, this team is in a lot of ways what I expected them to be at this point in the offseason. A lot of veteran guys that are coming back. Chip Kelly said, he's been around a lot of teams that talk about brotherhood because it's real here. You have the true competitive, tough practices that are not combative. I thought his distinction between those two things was really important, because when you get a coach who has the resume, the experience that Coach Kelly does, to come in and have a fresh set of eyes and say, wait a second, look, I played against Ohio State, or I should say, he coached against Ohio State, but he'd never been here before. Looking around to say, yeah, I mean, this is what everybody says it is. It's real. And you could feel it today. There were several interceptions today, which was cool. I thought the defense played really, really well. We saw some young kids with some juice. It's the kind of environment that you'll walk away from the spring game going, God, I can't wait for the fall.
I cannot wait for a fall Saturday. Come on, in this place. It's going to be a bunch of home games this year. This team's locked and loaded and ready to make a long run in the fall this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great home schedule. Maybe not quite as good as it was last year, but I think this could be a really good home schedule this year. You've got Iowa coming in, crossing over. Obviously, you're playing 4 road games and 8 home games. Obviously, team up north, Michigan's coming back here. And that's the game that right now everybody's kind of got circled. It's like, look, you can't put the cart before the horse, but you feel pretty good about where your quarterback play was. We didn't even bring up Aaron Nolan's name. I thought Aaron Nolan, late in the game when he got some run, I thought he looked pretty good.
And one of the groups we didn't talk about was the running back position as well. I mean, come on. You go Travion Henderson to Quinshon Judkins, and like, what are you going to do? What's the defense going to do? Like, that's what you're subbing in and out. Like, that's borderline unfair.
Coach Laughlin is I view him as the enforcer, and there's a different level of intensity coming out of that room. And personally, I really liked Tony Alford, but that's going to be a lot of fun to watch that relationship develop there from the running backs coach into that room. So Ton of content for you over on si.com/college/Ohio State. So certainly hope you'll check that out. And we are really looking forward to fall camp. Not going to say we're going to disappear during the summertime. We certainly won't. And there is the NFL draft coming in a couple of weeks. We do expect that there are going to be a few Buckeyes, although maybe next year's NFL draft suddenly looks a little bit heavier. There certainly are a couple of Ohio State guys we're going to keep our eye on. And certainly we'll see where Marvin Harrison ends up here in just a couple of weeks. So from the shoe on this gorgeous spring afternoon in Columbus, for Anthony Moeglin, I'm Brendan Gulick. Thanks for hanging out with us for a little bit here on Buckeyes Now. And we'll look forward to Ohio State taking the football field here again in